My day was off to such a good start. This morning I got up. These are my teaching jeans. I've worn these for every morning, Sunday morning I've taught here at Orchard, and I really only wear them for that. I'm not a big jeans guy, I just don't wear them. And as Randy said, it's been a minute since I've taught on a Sunday morning. Like, just to give you an idea, last time I taught, Taylor Swift had performed 0 times in her Eras tour. Does anybody remember a time before that? And so it's been a while, and I think she's up to like 150 performances now. And if you take that number times 8, that's how many cookies I've had in that time. So I got these jeans out last night about 11 p.m. I was like, should I try them on? It's like, let's roll the dice. Let's see what happens tomorrow morning. And I woke up this morning, and they fit a little tighter than usual, but that happens when you don't unfold something for that month. I mean, it kind of shrinks, So a little tighter, I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then Randy has to go and call me one of the old teachers. So, it's not just her. Jeff, when he asked me to come back, he's like, oh, it's been a while, We've just given some opportunities to some of our young teachers. And I was like, did he mean younger, or was it just young? But I think I'm the old teacher. Ed, I don't know if you were going for that on the teaching team, but can't have it. It's mine, okay? I'm the old teacher, and I'm so happy to be here this morning to be a part of this summer series, this Revealed series, that's allowed us to take a glimpse back at some of the most memorable characters and stories in the Old Testament. These characters and stories have given us some excellent opportunities to connect with the Old Testament and connect it with our modern lives, and how we can hear the whispers of Jesus as our rescuer in each of these stories. And this morning, we're going to dive into the story of Jacob and Esau, which can be found in the book of Genesis. And about 2 months ago, Jeff asked me to do this, and I was emailing back and forth with him about which Old Testament story I wanted to use for this summer teaching. And if any of you are like me, you probably spend a lot of your time reading the Bible and in the New Testament. I just love reading those stories that have Jesus as the main character, where he's out there in the world teaching these valuable lessons to people. And I can so easily connect with those New Testament stories. And as I was thinking about which story to focus on with my teaching, I quickly realized that Jesus is the main character of so many Old Testament stories, and so many of us, including myself, just miss it. So many of these Old Testament stories lead towards a better understanding of who Jesus is and who he can be in our lives. And this morning's Old Testament story is about 2 brothers named Jacob and Esau. And as we think about that, I have 1 brother, and I have 3 sons at home who are, of course, brothers. Growing up, my brother and I, he was 3 years younger than me, still is, shockingly. Growing up, my brother and I did not see eye to eye very often. We could not agree on much, and often enjoyed doing whatever we could to get each other in trouble or get the upper hand. One of my favorite stories is oftentimes we'd be sent to our rooms, of course, separate rooms. Thank goodness we didn't have to share rooms, but we did share a wall. And as we get sent to our rooms, we give about 2 or 3 minutes, parents leave, and then someone starts tapping on the wall and hitting, and you tap or hit loud enough to where parents don't hear, but you can't cross a certain line, and then all of a sudden you take out like the phone jack in the wall, and you start shoving things through that hole in the wall just to kind of get the other one going. So I really connected with this story about Jacob and Esau today, and luckily I was able to reflect upon my experiences with my brother in my childhood. And I worked with my wife to create a family where we all 3 boys, they get along all the time. They help each other up when they fall down. And they share so many things in our house without any conflict whatsoever. It's pretty awesome. I really wish that was true. That'd be great. But my kids are here today, and I can't lie to all of you. So I've been working on this teaching, and I've been thinking about these 2 brothers for the past couple months, all while watching my own boys argue about who gets the stool at the counter that has the back on it, or who's on whose wiffle ball team when there's only 3 people to choose from for those teams. These arguments and fights, they happen a lot in our house, and I kind of felt bad about that. But then I read this story again of Jacob and Esau, and as we get into it, you'll realize maybe your problems aren't so bad and my problems aren't so bad. It's a pretty crazy story. You see, Jacob and Esau were twin brothers who were born to Rebekah and Isaac, and these 2 boys were the grandsons of Abraham. Yes, that Abraham. They had some pretty good bloodlines, and they still couldn't get along. The story of Jacob and Esau starts in Genesis 25, and verse 22 starts the story with the two boys. Before they were even out of Rebekah's womb. we learn that in that verse that the boys were constantly jostling with each other while in the womb. Their mom was obviously concerned about this, and she did the right thing. She prayed about it. Well, she found out that she had 2 nations represented in her womb. That does not sound like fun. She also found out that the elder child would serve the younger child. And if you are an elder child in here, raise your hand if you wanted to take orders from your younger sibling. Not a whole lot of us. I would be interested in that. And Rebekah and Isaac sure had their hands full with these 2 boys, and they weren't even born yet. Esau would go on to be the first child born, and Jacob would be the second child born, and the youngest of the 2 boys. Now, Esau was described in Genesis 25 as an extremely hairy human being, this will be important later, who would become a skillful hunter and a man of the open country. Jacob was described as someone who was content to stay at home, and we'll find out later, he was pretty intelligent and a tad greedy. And we all know that parents aren't supposed to have favorites, but the Bible is full of all truths, so they tell us that these parents actually did have favorites. Esau was Isaac's favorite because of his love for wild game, and Jacob was Rebekah's favorite. This is all we know before we get into one of their well-known stories. The first major story starts in Genesis 25. It's verses 29 through 34, and it reads like this. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." That escalated super quickly. "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me if I'm dead?" Great logic. But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. In olden times, that's like the equivalent of a kid saying, "I don't care," like right now. I'm not sure there is a story in the Old Testament that I could connect with more. I can't complete any tasks when I'm hungry. We can be painting, right in the middle of painting every wall in our basement, and I'll disappear from my wife for 15, 20 minutes to go upstairs, have a sandwich, chips, because I just can't touch another paint roller until I get some food in my belly. And I have to wonder how long Jacob had put this plan together. It's clear to me that Jacob had seen this play out in their house before. Esau had clearly been out doing his thing, hunting for food other times, and came home near death if he didn't get food in his belly. And Jacob saw this as his opportunity to get this birthright that he coveted so greatly. And I wasn't sure why Jacob coveted this birthright so much, so I read up on what exactly it meant back then to get this birthright. After Jacob got Esau to trade his birthright for a bowl of stew, did get some bread out of it too, that meant Jacob would receive the family's estate and a double portion of whatever else was passed down. That trade gave Esau some relief in terms of hunger and kept him alive, but then it most likely set Jacob up financially for life. And even though Jacob was set up financially, he still lacked some serious power that was granted through this blessing from his father Isaac. That was where he set his sights next in Genesis 27. And in Genesis 27, the boy's father Isaac was getting old and near death. So he needed to make sure he gave this pretty large blessing to his firstborn son Esau. Both boys were eligible to receive a blessing from their father before his death, but Esau was due the greater of the blessings because he was firstborn. Isaac told Esau that it was time for the blessing and that Esau needed to go hunting for wild game to enjoy together before he gave him his blessing. Now, there's a pretty big twist in this story. I've only talked about the brothers fighting. That's kind of the rap that they get. But then Rebekah, the mom, hears this, and she runs to Jacob, telling him that he needs to get her some meat that she can prepare to give Isaac, and then Jacob can steal Esau's blessing. What a turn of events here. And get this, Jacob isn't quite on board with this whole thing right away. He's worried that he isn't hairy enough for Isaac to mistake him for Esau. Esau was super hairy, I guess. Isaac's old eyes were bad, but Esau had some hairy arms, and they were his calling card. No worries, though. Jacob's mom, Rebekah, comes in again. She prepares this nice meal and gets some goat skins for Jacob's arms. Like, Esau was really hairy. And this is going to fool Isaac into thinking that Jacob was Esau. And we're going to pick up this story in Genesis 27, and it's going to be verses 18 through 45. Here we go. It reads like this. Jacob went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son, Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you only have one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do as I say. Flee to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you and come back there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Like I said, if you thought your family had some drama before hearing that story, you may not be feeling too bad right now. I did not see that twist with Rebekah coming there. Jacob and Esau are always the one kind of catching heat for this, of not getting along in the story. But honestly, I don't think they were really set up for success from the get-go in this one. Right out of the womb, the world told Jacob that he wasn't good enough to get the estate and the double portion of whatever was passed down. And that all goes to his brother because he was born a few minutes earlier than him. The cards were stacked against Jacob right from the jump, I feel. And even after their births, their parents, and I'm guessing other people in their lives, were pushing this narrative that Esau was going to be this leader and decision maker because he was a few minutes older than Jacob. It wasn't based on any skills that the boys had or their natural abilities. It seemed to be strictly based on their age, something that neither boy could control. Why did there need to be this competition and this hierarchy set up for these two boys? Why couldn't there be a team approach to these things? I ask these questions about Isaac and Rebekah, and I start looking down on them for these areas where they seem to fail. But then I start thinking about my world and my decisions. This broken world that we lived in with sin is riddled with so many spots where we're promoting individuals over teamwork. I'm constantly comparing and ranking people in my head in areas of skills or trust or some other area of value to me. Our society breeds this competition of being better than the other people next to us, instead of looking for ways to work together, to do something even greater than any of us could do on our own. Most of my kids' fights or arguments are based on one of them being better than the other. Going on a walk as a family, of course, results in an argument because one kid got to the crack on the sidewalk before the other kid. Devastating. This competition is everywhere, and it's tough to find people who believe in the power of teamwork and working together over self-promotion, especially in this world where we've got social media and YouTube, like this whole world. And I can't completely condemn this social media YouTube world. I do think we have some hope in that world. There's a group of 5 guys who have somehow worked together now for 15 years. And I keep waiting for the news that one of them has decided to leave this group, because I grew up in the NSYNC era, and I remember when Justin left the group, it was devastating. No one has left this group of 5 guys yet. How are they remaining such a strong team in a world where we constantly rank people by their age, skills, or experience? How has one of them not thought, I can do this better, I can make more money than this team? And if you don't know who I'm talking about yet, it's this group called Dude Perfect. They're YouTubers right there. Some of you, the young people, I'm old, but the young people in here know who these people are. This is a group of 5 guys who started making YouTube trick shot videos during their college days at Texas A&M. They've turned these trick shot YouTube videos into something that is even more than a full-time job. They consistently make these crazy and fun videos, but they also have their own board game, their own streaming service, their own merch, their own tour of shows, and they're working on this Dude Perfect world, which is kind of like Disney, I guess. And they recently had an investment group invest $100 million in their future projects. How does all that money and fame for 15 years not lead one of these 5 guys to want to go out and do their own thing and do it better than what they're doing? What do they believe about teamwork that is helping them stay together for this amount of time? I do not know their hearts or what goes on behind the scenes, but I've been to their live show, I've watched their documentary, I've watched a zillion of their videos with my kids, and here's my take on it. After all those interactions, I had no idea who the CEO of their company is. I had no idea who the leader was. It's one of the twins. I still don't know which twin is which, but one of them is the CEO. They seem to do a really good job of celebrating each other and looking for ways to be servant leaders. Now, don't get me wrong. These dudes are some of the most competitive dudes I have ever seen. They do some competitions, and you should see them argue about rules and different things. But it seems when they are deciding on content or planning things out, they know how to share the spotlight. A couple of the guys aren't big into video games, you can tell as they do that, but they dove into that world a little bit. One of the guys is clearly not a fan of how long it takes to do the trick shots anymore. He's becoming a little older, but you still see him putting in the time because he knows that's important to the team and that's important to their fans. One guy always brings the energy, and it seems the other guys are okay with him being the energy guy. They do a really good job of knowing what they do well and how they can help this team. They also seem to do a really good job of knowing what others on the team do well. And they seem to love feeding into those things that others do well. What would have happened if there wasn't so much pressure on Jacob and Esau to either be the top dog or be the one who is going to follow the top dog? I think about my own life too. I put some pretty high expectations on my oldest son. He has been on earth the longest of our 3 boys. He should be better at getting his lunchbox unpacked and chores completed when he gets home. But when his younger brother gets that done before him and he doesn't, man, I let him know about that. Why do I feel the need to do that? Why can't I promote a team approach to this where they work together, utilizing their strengths to accomplish their goal? The younger brother that beats him is just like a checklist kid. He gets home, checks off all those things, and that's how he works. And the oldest one doesn't work that way. That's the approach that God uses with building his kingdom, this team approach. He knows that it takes a team approach to building his kingdom. At our birth, he gives us all the birthright that we don't deserve. He invites us all to the table when it comes to eternal life in heaven with him. We all have that choice, and we have the choice to work together with others to help build his kingdom. He doesn't tell us to do it on our own and to make sure that everyone knows who is falling short in this world. So take a moment right now. Where's a spot in your life that you're getting caught up in the promotion of the individual in this world? Where is that spot that you could promote teamwork and building each other up? How can you work with others to help build God's kingdom? This story of Jacob and Esau has taken quite a few turns. And as I have spent quite a bit of time in it these past 3 months, it has got me thinking about quite a few different pieces of the story that I didn't see coming. The ending of the story takes place in Genesis 32 and 33. It isn't as surprising as the stealing of the blessing, but it still gets us thinking about some things. In Genesis 32, Jacob is super concerned that when he comes in contact with Esau again, he's going to attack him. Because remember, Esau said he was going to kill him. And so Jacob has good reason to be worried. So he sent these messengers ahead of himself with all kinds of gifts for Esau to try to win his favor and kind of see just how mad he still is at him. And all this worry was for nothing. Genesis 33, verse 4, tells us what happens when these two finally meet again for the first time after Jacob stole Esau's blessing. It reads like this. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Not at all what Jacob expected after their last interaction. They both spend time catching up with each other about their families. Esau's kind of a little confused about all the gifts that Jacob's been offering him. Turns out that in his life experiences, Esau has found his sweet spot. Jacob, too, has found his sweet spot, and it wasn't with chasing someone else's birthright or blessing. After catching up, the two decided to go different ways and do what they are good at and passionate with. It turned out that Jacob and Esau just needed some time without the constant competition and tension between them to figure things out. They needed some space from each other to gain life experiences and find their sweet spot. Earlier in the story from this morning, Jacob couldn't stop focusing on what Esau had that he didn't. He was never looking for how God made him to make a positive impact on others and help build his kingdom. He had a role, and it was an important role, but he just kept getting caught up in chasing after what Esau was going for. There's a situation that I think paints a pretty great picture as we wrap up today of this happening in our world right now. Here are two women that you most should recognize, I would think, if we put that picture up there. That is Caitlin Clark on your left, Kate Martin on the right. These two women have positively impacted so many lives during these past 4 years. Caitlin on the left is the superstar, all right? And by the way, both these played for basketball for University of Iowa, now playing in the WNBA. Everybody knows Caitlin. The world has kind of started to learn about this Kate Martin gal. Our society loves to focus on the superstar Caitlin Clark. And Kate had the option, with all the greatness of Caitlin, to get caught up in trying to be as good as her or trying to be her. She could have craved that spotlight that Caitlin was living in during their time at Iowa, but Kate didn't do that. Instead, Kate explored what she could do to help her team and help Caitlin be better. She found ways that she could help build something really special in Iowa City, something that I never really thought I'd see in my lifetime. The Iowa Hawkeyes in a national championship game. These gals did it twice. And now in the WNBA this season, Kate has been viewed as one of the most successful rookies thus far. Despite not being a first-round draft pick, not being the superstars like the other ones. And one of the reasons she has been doing so well is that she knows her strengths and how those strengths can help her team. She has two of the best players on her team now, and she isn't trying to be them. She's learning from them, soaking up every minute. She's working hard to help where she can. Kate was nicknamed the Glue during her time at Iowa. She didn't score the most points, she didn't shoot the long three-pointers, and she wasn't the one all the defenses focused on stopping. Here's our Kate's strengths. She's the toughest person in the room. She knows how to connect with people, and she has an amazing understanding of how the offense and defense in basketball should flow. She has figured out what she is really good at, and she finds ways to make a positive impact on her team without needing to be the superstar. Her coaches have known her strengths too, and they've put her in spots where she can help the team find some pretty big successes. I think we need to think about Kate when we're trying to find our spot, our sweet spot, or our role in the kingdom-building world of God. And I want to make one thing really clear. The Iowa Hawkeyes would not have made either national championship game without Kate Martin on their team. She may not have been the superstar, but she played a very important role. And the same goes for all of us when it comes to building God's kingdom. We play such an important role. We just need to work to find that role. It took Jacob and Esau quite a while for them to find their roles. There were some bumps in the road. Remember when Esau wanted to kill Jacob? They couldn't really ever see each other as part of the same team. And I think the Bible uses this story to let us know that we all have the option to be on the team together. We're all invited to be on a team that brings glory to God and builds his kingdom. And we all have an important role on that team. God made each and every one of us with special skills and personality traits that make us an important part of that team. And through many life experiences, including small groups, different jobs, and being a husband and dad, I've learned that God has made me as someone who can develop relationships with just about anybody. That I'm someone who can bring, every supervisor I've ever had said, Tyler, you can bring the calm to the team. And I've loved to be able to recognize strengths in others and help them realize that as well. And those are three things that I've discovered in my journey of finding my role on this team that is working together to build God's kingdom. My challenge for you here is to think about this invitation that God has given each and every one of us to be a part of his team. And if you're already trying to live your life for him or ready to give it a shot, be looking for teammates out there. Be ready to listen to others and learn about your strengths and how they are impacting others or how they could impact others. Live in the moment and work to build others up while working together to help build God's kingdom. God has a spot for you on the team, and he has great, great plans for you and his kingdom. Join me in prayer. Dear God, I thank you so much for the invitation that you've given us to be on your team, to help build your kingdom and to spend eternal life with you. It's so tough to know what we can do to help the team, and I just pray that you help us here in this room. Keep an eye out for those spots that we can help. Keep an eye out for things we do well and how they can help build your kingdom. Thanks so much. Amen.